John Wooden's note card, principle number 6. I mean, let's go backwards for a moment and ask the question once again, what would you write on the note card? What would you write on the note card? If you knew you were going to write down a note card, you were going to write down a few things, a few guidelines for how to make a great life. What do you write on there? 3 points, 4 points, 5 points? John Wooden's father, Joshua, wrote down 7. And we're talking about number 6 today. But if you were writing them down, which would you write down? Would you take some from Wooden? Or would you write down different ones? Number 6. You could really describe 6 this way. Greatness is caused when there's no applause. You know, greatness is what's done when there is no spotlight on you. Pillar number 6, Joshua Wooden wrote, build a shelter for a rainy day by the way you live your life. Build a shelter for a rainy day by the way you live your life. See, John Wooden, he walked around campus with note cards all the time, with note cards. He had note cards mapping out every single moment of every single practice. 210 hours. He would say it all the time. He said, I have 210 hours. That's what I have. I have 210 hours worth of practice. And when they came to the game, so often Coach Wooden would tell his players, it's in your hands now. It's in your hands. And my work is done. Now it's in your hands. Wooden's one of his role models we've talked about many times before. Abe Lincoln said, the worst thing you could do for those you love are the things they could and should do for themselves. Build a shelter for a rainy day by the way you live your life. In other words, it's the work you did today that a year from now, 5 years from now, a decade, 4 decades from now, we'll see the fruit of that work. And Coach Wooden loved to tell his players, you know, the score can never make you a loser because you're in control of your preparation. You're in control of your effort. And at the end of the game, we ask ourselves, you know, did we do everything we could to prepare? Did we do everything we could in the game? Well, then win or lose, we win. See, Coach Wooden didn't like sports movies that had this, you know, this underdog that learns the lesson. They learn this one amazing, valuable lesson that, you know, it's not whether you win or lose, or that teamwork is more important, or that personal responsibility, or that it's not okay to cheat. You know, he didn't like sports movies where that lesson happened and then the team took the field and won. Coach Wooden said, I wish the movie would end with they learn the lesson and they take the field, or they go out on the court or out on the ice, and we don't know. We don't know if they won or lost, because the point was not did they win or lose that specific game or that specific season or championship. The point was, did they learn? Did they really learn that lesson? John Wooden's father had a farm, and one year he decided to put all of his savings into diversifying his farm, because he had they grew things, you know, and one year he decided he was going to buy some pigs, and he invested all of his savings in purchasing some pigs and paying for a vaccine to keep those pigs healthy. And the vaccine was tainted, and the pigs all got sick, and the pigs all died. And John Wooden's father, Joshua, lost his life's savings in that investment. He ended up having to sell the farm and going and getting a job and working long hours for the rest of his life. But you see, John Wooden printed out these little cards that he gave out to thousands of people around the world. And they contained these 7 principles we're talking about. But there was also a little note on there that was Joshua Wooden's set of 3. One of his sets of 3 that said, don't whine, don't complain, don't make excuses. And John Wooden said he never heard his father once whine or make excuses when he lost his life savings, when he lost those pigs. He didn't complain. He probably made the assumption that the doctor, wherever he got the vaccine, that it was an accident. And he didn't whine, and he didn't complain, and he didn't make excuses. Always be prepared for a rainy day by the way you lead your life. John Wooden liked to say our young people, they need role models. They need role models more than they need critics. Do the people in your world, do they need role models? Do your kids need role models more than they need critics? Does your spouse need a role model more than she or he needs a critic? Do your coworkers, do the people that work for you, does your boss need a role model more than they need a critic? Does your company, does your community need a role model more than it needs a critic? See, Coach Wooden players often would say the games felt like slow motion. The games felt like slow motion because they would practice things faster and faster and faster and faster and go through the plays and set the picks and practice the footwork drills faster and faster and faster. And so often they do these things without a ball first because he wanted them to get it down. He wanted them to get it down. He wanted them to be so good at it, so smooth at it, so incredibly quick and consistent at excellence that the game would feel like slow motion. If you're building a shelter for a rainy day by the way you lead your life, you're making your practices hard. You know, some of John Wooden's students who became coaches, some of the best coaches in history, took ideas from him. One of his students liked to say, set a goal to make your practices the hardest practice in the league. Set a goal to make your practice the hardest practice in the division or in the region or in the conference. Set a goal to make your practice the hardest one in your company or in your family or in your whole genealogy. What's your routine? What's your practice? I get it, you're not coaching basketball probably. But what's your practice when you're getting ready for a meeting? What's your practice when you're working on listening to people? What's your practice when you're working on communicating some key point that you know that point needs to be communicated? Sue Enquist, another of Coach Wooden's students, we talked about her in an earlier session. She said, stain their brain. Stain their brain. Stain their brain. She said, imagine you got a Sharpie and you get to stain the brain of your team, your players, with just one message. What are you staining their brain with? She said, I think this might be one thing you might want to stain their brain with. She said, I've never heard a player say, oh, that coach, she, you know what? She got me to believe in myself too much. Sue Enquist said, I've never heard a player say that. She said, that was one of her things I want to stain the brain of my players with. She got me to believe in myself. She got me to believe in myself. She got me to believe in a higher vision, a higher version, a higher standard for myself. Stain their brains. Stain their brains. Coach Wooden, build a shelter for a rainy day by the way you lead your life.